And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Tonight's weather showing showers continuing but diminishing here, especially over the south central Alaska area, but continuing pretty extensive up toward the Alaska Range into the eastern interior there. From about Eagle southward into the eastern Alaska Range, showers continuing around Yakutat, diminishing over the southeast coast. And the next system out here to the west will bring a little bit of an increase in the wind and rain to the western Aleutians. Otherwise, pretty quiet over the central and eastern Bering Sea. Quite an area of rain and showers covering actually the southern part of the state here, right down into northern Cook Inlet and into the coast range there. Southern Kenai Peninsula should be dry, Kodiak Island, southwest interior, as well as up here to the north. And not too bad for the Panhandle, partly to mostly with a risk of a shower or two. And then for the day on Thursday, increasing chances of rain over the southern southeast coast with the system farther to the south there. And scattered showers, drier day actually here over southern Alaska, but still a lot of clouds and a few showers around. Dry for the southwest interior under high pressure and the eastern Bering Sea as well, with some pretty good clearing possible out in these areas, especially up to Kodiak Island. Not much change up here to the north and northeast. And this system bringing rain with small craft advisory level winds to the Aleutians. Coastal water forecast for the south coast of the Panhandle, south winds 15 knots. Otherwise, variable to south winds at 10 knots. Pretty light for the north coast. Lynn Canal and Stevens Passage, Clarence Strait, south winds 15 knots. Then for the day on Thursday, inside waters, variable winds at 10 knots with slight seas. East to southeast winds 10 to 15 knots for the south coast, east to 10 knots for the central coast, and east to south winds 10 knots for the north coast. Prince William Sound and the North Gulf Coast, south winds at 10 knots for the day Wednesday, southwest at 15 for Cook Inlet. Kamishak Bay and the Barren Islands, light southeast winds only at about 10 knots, seas 3 feet. And then for Thursday, variable winds, 10 knots, Prince William Sound, the North Gulf Coast, the Barren Islands, and Kamishak Bay. Light southwest wind for Cook Inlet at 10 knots, seas 2 to 3 feet. And for Kodiak Island, northeast breezes 10 to 15 knots with 2 to 4 foot seas. Variable winds 10 to 15 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, southwest at 15 for Bristol Bay. And then for the day Thursday, kind of an east-southeast wind now for the western Alaska Peninsula at 15 knots. Bristol Bay, light west winds at 10 knots, and Kodiak Island, light variable winds at 10 knots. Eastern Aleutians, anywhere from variable to south to northwest winds at 10 to 20 knots for the day on Wednesday. South to southeast at 15 knots for Adak and Atka, and small craft advisories here for the western Aleutians for east to southeast winds 20 to 30 knots. Then on Thursday, pretty good east winds at about 30 knots for Adak and Atka, and then east winds 25 to 30 knots for the western Aleutians. Eastern Aleutians, windier conditions there as well from the east and southeast at 25 to 30 knots with the seas now up to 13 feet. Southwest coast, south of Nunivak Island, northwest winds at 15 knots. Otherwise, here for the northern Bering Sea, St. Lawrence Island into Norton Sound, west at 15, southwest 15 for the St. Matthew Island area and the Pribilofs. And then for the day on Thursday, we've got southeast wind or southwest wind at 10 knots for Norton Sound. Yukon Delta Coast, St. Lawrence Island, southeast at 15, south winds 15 knots, St. Matthew Island, Pribilofs, southeast winds at 15. Light west wind at 10 knots there for the Kuskokwim Delta Coast. And for the central and eastern Beaufort Sea coastline, tomorrow east winds at about 20 knots. Small craft advisories for the western Arctic coast, east at 25 knots. Otherwise, kind of a variable wind pattern here for the Chukchi Sea at 5 to 15 knots. And for the day on Thursday for the Chukchi Sea, south to southwest winds 10 to 15 knots. East winds 15 knots for the western Arctic coast. Central and east side, mainly east winds at 15 to 20 knots.